5 Scary Stories at National Parks. 1. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting an eerie twilight over the dense forest that surrounded me. I stood alone in the heart of Darkwood National Park, miles away from civilization. The rustling leaves and distant calls of nocturnal creatures were my only companions. I had always been drawn to the mysterious and unexplored, but I was about to experience something that would haunt me for the rest of my life. I had arrived at Darkwood National Park earlier in the day, eager to explore its pristine wilderness, armed with a backpack filled with supplies and a flashlight. I set out on a trail that promised to lead me to a secluded campsite. The hike was invigorating, and I relished in the solitude and the serenity of the forest. As night descended, I pitched my tent in a small clearing by a crystal-clear stream. The flickering campfire offered a comforting glow against the encroaching darkness. I roasted marshmallows and stared into the mesmerizing dance of flames. But the tranquility was shattered by a bone-chilling scream that pierced through the forest. My heart raced, and I grabbed my flashlight, scanning the area around me. The scream had sounded close, too close for comfort. I hesitated for a moment, torn between my instincts to run and my desire to investigate. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone might be in danger. Against my better judgment, I decided to follow the sound of the scream. Branches cracked beneath my boots as I ventured deeper into the woods, my flashlight cutting through the thick veil of darkness. The forest seemed to come alive with eerie whispers, and the shadows danced in sinister ways. As I moved closer to the source of the scream, I stumbled upon an abandoned campsite. Torn tents, scattered belongings, and a sense of chaos surrounded me. Fear clawed at my throat as I realized something had gone terribly wrong here. A quick scan of the camp revealed that not only were there claw marks, but there was blood staining the tents. That's when I heard it again. The haunting scream, now a mere whisper on the wind. Against my better judgment, I followed it. It led me to a cave entrance concealed by a thick underbrush. The eerie glow from within the cave beckoned me, and I couldn't resist its pull. I cautiously stepped into the cave, my flashlight revealing an intricate network of tunnels. The walls were covered in strange, indecipherable symbols, and the air was thick with an otherworldly chill. I had entered a place that defied all reason. Deeper into the cave, I found a chamber bathed in an eerie green light. In the center of the chamber stood a group of shadowy figures, their back to me. They chanted in an unearthly language, their voices a discordant symphony of horror. My heart pounded in my chest. I watched in terror as they turned to face me, their eyes devoid of any humanity. I stumbled backwards, my flashlight falling to the ground, plunging me into darkness. As I ran blindly through the labyrinthine tunnels, the cave seemed to twist and contort, leading me in circles. The whispered chants grew louder, and I felt a malevolent presence closing in on me. Just as I thought I was lost forever, I burst out of the cave and into the night air. Gasping for breath, I stumbled back to my campsite, packed up my gear, and fled the Darkwood National Park. I didn't even bother packing up my tent. I just grabbed my pack and ran for the car. I don't know what they were doing in that cave, but I swore as I headed back to my car, I felt like I was being followed by something on all fours. Maybe it was whatever left those claw marks in that tent. But Darkwood National Park holds secrets that still remain hidden, and that's one national park I won't be heading back to, ever again. 2. It was supposed to be a dream vacation, a chance to escape the hustle and bustle of the city life and reconnect with nature. My girlfriend and I had decided to spend a long weekend camping in the remote wilderness of Pinecrest National Park. Little did we know that our adventure would quickly turn into something we didn't want to be a part of. The journey to Pinecrest was long and arduous. We drove for hours, leaving behind the familiarity of civilization as we ventured deeper into the heart of the wild. Tall pine trees surrounded us, their branches swaying ominously in the wind, as if whispering secrets to one another. By the time we reached our campsite, the sun had already dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. We hurriedly set up our tent, gathered firewood, and lit a campfire. The crackling flames offered some comfort in the growing darkness. As night settled in, we roasted marshmallows and shared stories, trying to ignore the feeling of being watched. There was an eerie silence in the air, broken only by the occasional hoot of an owl or the distant howl of a coyote. It was as if the entire forest held its breath, waiting for something to happen. Around midnight, we decided to turn in for the night after finishing watching a movie I had downloaded on my iPad. We crawled into our sleeping bags, nestling inside the tent, and tried to shake off the unease that still had us feeling unsettled. But sleep proved elusive. Sometime in the middle of the night, I was jolted awake by a sound that sent shivers down my spine. It was a low, guttural growl, unlike anything I had ever heard before. I elbowed my girlfriend, who was also wide awake, her eyes filled with fear. We listened in terror as the growling grew louder, accompanied by heavy footsteps that seemed to circle our tent. Whatever it was massive and dangerously close. Panic set in as we realized that we were trapped inside the flimsy fabric of our tent with no way to defend ourselves. I looked over the dim light and my girlfriend mouthed, "We need to call for help," as she fumbled for her phone. But there was no signal, just an eerie silence on the other end of the line. The footsteps continued to circle, and then we heard a sharp, sniffing noise. As the footfalls continued, the sniffing circled us as well. It sent chills down our spines. Suddenly, the tent was jolted violently from the outside. We screamed in terror as the fabric tore and something massive and hairy lunged inside. I got a glimpse of its eye. A massive paw raked through the tent, its eyes filled with malice. We scrambled out of the tent, leaving behind our belongings, and ran blindly into the woods. Branches scratched our faces, and our breath came in ragged gasps as we sprinted through the darkness. The sniffing and growling followed us, haunting our every step. Hours later, we stumbled upon a ranger station, disheveled and traumatized. We reported what happened, but the ranger's face grew pale as he listened. He told us we could stay at the station until morning, but never mentioned what it was we had encountered. To this day, my girlfriend and I can't explain what happened in Pinecrest National Park that night. We still couldn't tell you what kind of animal it was that attacked our tent, then stalked us for hours. All we know is that some secrets are better left undisturbed in the heart of the wilderness. And those eyes. I'll never forget the look of those eyes as they stared intently into my soul through that tent. 3. I always had a deep fascination with the natural world, so when the opportunity arose to spend a week in the remote Heartwood National Park, I jumped at it. I had always loved camping with my parents growing up, and I had gone a few times as an adult, so I knew what I was getting myself into when I set out into the wild. Always be prepared and all. I arrived at Heartwood National Park on a crisp autumn morning, the air carrying a scent of fallen leaves and damp earth. The towering trees enveloped the park, creating an atmosphere of tranquility and isolation. My backpack was filled with supplies, including a sturdy tent, a flashlight, and enough food to last me for a nice long week of hiking. It had taken quite a few months for me to save up the time at work to take off, and I'd been super excited to finally get out here. The first few days were blissful and eventful. I hiked the trails, took photographs of the breathtaking scenery, and reveled in the solitude. But on the fourth night, that solitude became unnerving. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I settled into my tent, nestling into the secluded clearing deep in the park. The night was still, and only the sounds were the gentle rustling of leaves in the breeze and the distant hoots of owls. I felt safe in the cocoon of my sleeping bag. Then, in the dead of the night, I was awoken by a haunting, melodic tune. It was unlike any sound I had ever heard, a hypnotic and eerie melody that seemed to emanate from the very heart of the forest. My heart pounded as I unzipped the tent and stepped outside. The moonlight filtered through the trees, casting eerie shadows on the forest floor. The music grew louder, pulling me deeper into the woods. My flashlight illuminated gnarled tree trunks and tangled underbrush. The closer I got to the source of the music, the more my sense of unease deepened. I stumbled upon a clearing bathed in an unnatural, bluish glow. There, in the center, was a group of figures, their faces obscured by dark, hooded robes. They swayed in a bizarre dance, holding hands and circling a massive, ancient tree. Their song was lament, a haunting dirge that sent shivers down my spine. In a haze of fear, I realized I'd stumbled upon something inexplicable and malevolent. I tried to retreat quietly, but a twig snapped beneath my feet. The hooded figures stopped their dance, and all at once, they turned towards me, their faces hidden in shadow, the music coming to an immediate halt. Panic gripped me, and I sprinted back towards my tent, my heart pounding louder as the eerie song began again. Behind me, I could hear their voices rising in a terrifying crescendo. It was a sound that seemed to seep into my very soul, filling me with dread. I dove into my tent, zipping it shut, and prayed that whatever they were, they wouldn't find me. Outside, the chanting grew louder and more frenzied. I clamped my hands over my ears, trying to block out the nightmarish cacophony of sounds. Hours passed, and the chanting finally ceased. Exhausted and terrified, I dared to peek out of my tent, releasing my hands from over the ears. The clearing was empty, bathed in a soft light of dawn. I wasted no time packing my belongings and heading out of the park. I hiked all day the next day to get out of the park. By sunset, I had hiked non-stop all day, but finally arrived in my car. I spent the rest of my vacation time tending the blisters on my feet from hiking that day, and mending whatever had happened to my mind. Every now and then I still hear that chilling melody play through my memory, the hooded figures in the forest haunting my dreams, a reminder to not venture into national parks alone. 4. My heart pounded as I ventured deeper into the heart of Whispering Pines National Park. The dense forest seemed to close in around me, and the once friendly sunlight was swallowed by the towering trees. I'd always loved nature, but I'd never experienced anything like this before. I had arrived at Whispering Pines National Park with a group of friends, excited for a weekend of camping and hiking. The park was known for its lush forest, pristine lakes, and the eerie legends that surrounded it. Despite the stories, we were determined to explore its untouched beauty. As night fell, we gathered around a campfire, the flames casting eerie, dancing shadows. Laughter filled the air as we shared stories and had a few drinks and roasted marshmallows. The night seemed perfect until a strange sound rippled through the forest, a soft, ghostly whisper that sent shivers down my spine. I glanced at my friends, but they didn't seem to notice. They continued chatting and joking, oblivious to the eerie ambience that had settled upon our campsite. The whispers grew louder, like a chorus of voices speaking in hushed, indistinguishable tones. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice trembling. My friends exchanged confused glances, but no one seemed to share my unease. They brushed it off as a wind rustling at the leaves. But I knew it was something more. My curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to follow the whispers. Leaving my friends behind, I ventured into the dark woods, my flashlight cutting through the inky blackness. Thinking back, it was odd that my friends didn't come with me, but in the moment I was so fixed on finding out what that noise was, I didn't even think about it. The whispers led me deeper into the forest, guiding my every step. It was as if the trees themselves were speaking, their secrets carried on the night breeze. I came upon a clearing bathed in an eerie, pale light, the moon casting shadows through the trees. In the center of the clearing stood a circle of ancient, gnarled trees, their branches twisted like skeletal fingers. The whispers grew deafening, forming words I couldn't comprehend. Fear clutched at my throat as I realized I was not alone. Figures emerged from the shadows, hooded and draped in tattered cloths. Their eyes glowed in otherworldly light as they encircled me. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe as they began to chant in a language that sent shivers down my spine. The ground beneath my feet quaked, and I watched in terror as the trees themselves began to move, their branches stretching and twisting towards me. It was as if the forest had come alive, a malevolent force intent on capturing me. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't respond. The figures closed in, their chant growing louder and more insistent. Just when I thought I was lost, a blinding light pierced the darkness, and a powerful gust of wind swept through the clearing. The hooded figures screamed in anguish and disappeared into the forest, the trees retreating to their original positions. I was left alone, shaken and bewildered. I stumbled back to the campsite where my friends were still around the campfire, unaware of the horrors I had just witnessed. I thought about telling them, but what exactly would I have told them? What I would have told them, they wouldn't have believed. We packed up our belongings the next morning, and I couldn't help but glance back at the woods. I had stumbled upon something ancient and dark in Whispering Pines National Park. As we drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was still whispering its secrets, waiting for the next unsuspecting visitor to uncover its dark mysteries. I prayed that night for whatever summoned that gust of wind, because it had saved my life from the forest. 5. The crisp autumn air greeted me as I ventured into the heart of Moonshadow National Park, the colors of fall painting the trees in vibrant hues. It was a solo camping trip, a chance to escape the noise of the city and immerse myself in the tranquility of the wilderness. I had set up camp near the shores of Blackwater Lake, a place known for its serene beauty. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched like skeletal fingers into the forest. A moon emerged, bathing the landscape in an eerie silver light. Sitting by the campfire, I felt a sense of unease, as if I were being watched. I shook it off as my imagination playing tricks on me, and focused on cooking my dinner. But the unease persisted, gnawing at the edges of my consciousness. The first sight of something truly amiss came when I heard a soft, melodic humming from the woods. It was a haunting tune, one that sent shivers down my spine. I grabbed my flashlight and followed the sound, thinking it might be a lost hiker or fellow camper. The forest grew denser and the humming more distant. As I ventured deeper, the woods seemed to close in around me. The trees appeared twisted and distorted. The silver moonlight no longer felt comforting. It felt malevolent, casting long, eerie shadows that danced unnaturally. I reached a small clearing. My heart stopped. There, in the center, was a circle of towering ancient trees, their branches forming a grotesque canopy. Beneath them, a group of figures clad in tattered robes stood in a circle, swaying and humming that haunting melody. I was frozen in place, my heart pounding in my chest as I watched this surreal scene unfold. It was like something out of a movie, but there was no way I was actually seeing this. The figures moved with unnatural grace, their eyes vacant and hollow. The melody seemed to emanate from their very being, a hypnotic chant that threatened to ensnare my mind. A powerful gust of wind swept through the clearing, extinguishing my flashlight. How? I didn't understand. It was electric. How could the wind have taken out my flashlight? In the darkness, the figures turned towards me, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Panic surged through me as I fumbled to relight my flashlight. At that moment, I realized that this was real. I was in actual danger. Every single hair on my body stood up as the figures turned towards me. When the beam of light pierced the darkness again, the figures were gone. The ancient trees stood silent and motionless. I stumbled back to my campsite, my mind racing with fear and confusion. I packed up my belongings and didn't even wait until morning to leave. I never shared my experience with anyone, for fear they would think me mad. But I knew what I had witnessed was real. Whatever lurks in the woods of that national park is something I don't plan to ever revisit again. Ever again. Which story caught your attention the most? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Until next time, stay safe. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Check out my website in the description below to see what I'm writing, and just below that are some suggestions related to what we talked about today. Peace.